Welcome back, and thank you for joining us for another soul-driven interview. These interviews are with people from all walks of life who have discovered their true purpose and are living it out every day. Today, I'm excited to introduce you to Colin Harris, an energy healer, Akashic Record reader, and spiritual badass. I'm honored to have Colin on the podcast today. He's someone I admire for his great love of people and helping others, and his incredible gifts of insight and healing. I've had the pleasure of working with him and would highly recommend it to anyone seeking truth, direction, or healing in their life. Welcome to the show, Colin.
Hi, I'm happy to be on.
It's so fun to have you. If I can keep my voice here. So I actually just worked with Colin last weekend. And so this was really cool how this worked out, having him on the podcast so quickly. We both agree it was kind of one of those divine things.
Super divine, yeah. That everything just magically flowed together this week.
It was meant to be. Okay, so let's jump in. We have so much to talk about today, and of course, so much to geek out about here. So just a quick reminder for folks, if you are watching or if you are listening to this on audio, you can also watch the video on YouTube, and that link will be in the show notes. All right, so first question, what makes you soul-driven?
You know, I heard other episodes where they asked that you asked that question, and I've been thinking about that a lot. What makes me soul driven is just that I want my soul to drive my life. So I'm constantly checking to see like who's driving the car of my life. Is it my mind? Is it my body, or is it my soul? And I really, really try to just live from the soul.
That's a great answer. My follow-up question is, how can you tell the difference?
When I live at the soul level, I have no problems. When I'm living in ego and mind, like things just seem like they're coming at you all the time, right? And how that feels in my life is just like, it's not that there isn't problems, but when I'm living that soul-filled life, it's like those problems like aren't big, they're surmountable, and it just feels really heart-centered.
So it's one of those in the flow type feelings. Is that correct?
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. I get in those every so often, and it's my happy space. Okay. So next question, piggybacking off the top of that, one of the things that I really love about like feeling into my body is how much I feel connected with my soul. So then what's the difference between like living from your soul or living from your body?
So like I would rather live in my body than live in my mind, that's for sure. But I guess the difference would be is there's like less primal urges, like when we're really living in our body, like food is like really, intense, and like pleasure and these things. Not saying you can't have those things when you're living in a soul-filled life or when you're at the soul, but really like you can feel the difference, when you're just like, oh, I'm going to just crush this ice cream and it's going to be amazing. And,
Says what is it? You're double Taurus and Virgo moon? Is that
Yeah,
right?
I believe that's what it is.
So Taurans love food, for those who don't know.
I love food.
I love it too, and I'm not a Taurus. Awesome. So great. Yeah, interesting answer. I think it's differentiating between those is still something I'm really figuring out, but it makes sense. I mean, my mind's going 24/7, and then my body is definitely thinking like it was this morning about ice cream for breakfast.
Yeah, it's super interesting. And like when you're at that soul place, you're like, oh, like the salad just feels so much better, like uh that's my biggest tip off, just like, oh no, like who's driving the car? Is it the
Yeah.
mind? The mind likes to take over a lot from everybody, really.
Yeah. A little bit too easy, especially in the Western culture.
Yes, definitely. The Western culture as a whole, we like, well, that's what we're taught from a young age, right? Get out of the heart, get into the mind, get stuff done, like, why is it happening now? I want things now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Want things now. I mean, like we've got drive through everything. I think the world kind of cracked in half when Amazon's Prime Day 2-day delivery wasn't happening earlier this year in the midst of the pandemic lockdown. All my friends were like, "Oh my gosh, I've realized like how excessive I am because I can't handle the fact my packages are taking longer than 2 days."
Well, in Canada, like, I just assume things are going to take multiple days. I don't have same day delivery.
Well, yeah, we don't have it here either, but 2 days, you get used to it. I won't lie. I was definitely there. Okay, so let's jump into story and something I love doing in regards to setting the stage of my interviews is talking about people's backgrounds because they're so fascinating to me. So I'd love to kind of start with like where you're from and where you grew up. You just talked about Canada, so we know that you're nice, that's for sure.
I know, eh? Well, I grew up in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. The prairies, short drive to the mountains. And it's cold, but we get the beautiful seasons. So I love where I live, and I don't know if I'd change where I live.
Yeah, Canada's gorgeous. Are the photos on your website from close to where you live?
Some of the photos, yes, it's like about a 2-hour drive, and then it's like Magic Mountains, as I call them, my happy place.
Yeah.
But I've thought about moving closer, but honestly, like, it's nice. Like, if you're next to them all the time, sometimes you like appreciate things less versus like if I have to take a drive there, it's like, oh yeah, like I'm in the mountains, and it's really like grounding for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the mountains. I grew up in the mountains and it's where my heart is. And it's where I'm moving back to because I need them. The older I've gotten, the more I need to return to that. So, share more about your childhood with us. Before the call, we were kind of chatting about it briefly, and I found out that energy work is something in your family, which was such a cool surprise. So, I'd love to hear more about your background in general.
Yeah. So I was raised Catholic, and then like I'd say I was probably about 7 years old, and my dad really got into like therapeutic touch, which is kind of like Reiki. And so I got exposed at a really young age to like energy healing and talking to spirits and um, like watching healings happen. And my dad like had all these cool tricks where you like bent the spoon and stuff, right? So at a young age, I was exposed to that, and then unfortunately, like out of nowhere, my dad just like stopped, and he still hasn't quite told me. I think he had a couple scary experiences, like when you start doing spiritual work and then sometimes dark things within ourselves come up. And then so my dad stopped. Um, so then obviously that experience, like it was just like the most perfect little like sprinkle from spirit to get to me where I am today.
Interesting. Okay, I feel like you said a lot of things in that little bit. So, first of all, he was bending spoons like the Matrix.
Yeah, not with his mind, but like if anybody can try this. If you Google spinning spoon, but you focus your energy on one point. So you hold the spoon in your hand, right? And then you just like focus on that point, and you don't have to put any muscle into it. And you can just like, he could wind a spoon up. And so it would just be like the handle and it would all be, and then the big spoon end. And it was pretty cool to watch.
Seriously.
Yeah, like real life magic. And then like I would try it and I couldn't try it. I seen him do it with like rebar and stuff. He was super good at it.
Wow, that's pretty
Yeah.
incredible. How old were you when this happened? Or like
Young,
age range?
yeah, like between like 7 and 11, I'd say.
Okay. So then that was like a part of your initial foundation.
Yeah, definitely. Like when I look back on that, I'm like, oh yeah, like that, like I didn't realize it until I really got into it. It's like, oh, like when I found out like you pick your parents and stuff, and I like think back to that and I'm like, oh yeah, like that was spirit definitely being like, oh, here's like some magic just to keep my mind open to it for further down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, getting to see magic like that at such a young age is it's pretty incredible. Did you tell any of your friends about it?
I don't remember. I don't think I did. It was kind of like my dad was kind of like private about it, right? Because, like the old mentality. Um, it's just like you didn't talk about like spiritual stuff, 20 years ago. Uh,
Yeah. Well, especially not, I would think anything outside of the, norm, especially if you were raised Catholic. Was there any kind of conflict or friction?
no, because so my mom and dad were separated. So like I'd go to my dad's house on the weekend, right? And then like when I was at my mom's house, I think I went to church right around that time is when I kind of stopped going to church. I mean, I was always in Canada. We have Catholic school, and I was always in Catholic school. Um, but like I didn't see a difference, like now older, I can look at like, oh, like I can see why like, the different views and stuff, but like it was just all spirit and God to me at once.
I love that. So, okay, you had this pretty incredible. We need to have your dad on the show to find out what happened. Because now
Yeah.
I want to know. Okay, so then did you stick with the spiritual edge in your life, or how did
No.
that flow into your life? What was next for
Yeah.
you?
So like I'd say the next phase of my life was like I went super atheist and like super scientific and like God doesn't exist, you know. Um, and then I'd say in my mid 20s, I started to be like real curious about God because like there was just things like coincidences that you always see, and like they were happening to me, and I had this urge like within my heart to like find God. Um, like something just clicked, and it was like, oh, like no, there's definitely a God. There's too many things in life that are like wow, and I believed in miracles and stuff, and then I realized like, oh hey, like there's more to life. There's more that I can't see, and then that started my search.
So, who is God to you, or what kind of a God were you searching for?
I didn't know. Um, to be honest with you, like I like think back and like the types of churches that I was enjoying at that time were definitely like ones with filled with like a lot of love. Like if I went into like one church and I didn't feel like love, like oh like that's not for me. Like so a lot of I went into a bunch of them and I was like no, this isn't me. And then I went to like into a church and they were a Christian church and they're like singing and they had like a band and I was like oh yeah, this is better. Like this is
Non-denominational, probably.
yeah. And so like I was like, okay, like this is what I like. And then I went to that for about a year. And then but again, it felt like there's something more.
Yeah, absolutely. I went through a stage in my own life when I left home. Actually, no, I think I might have been in high school. I can't remember, where I was trying out a lot of different types of churches because I was really curious. And I went to a Lutheran church, and these girls got up to sing, and they were like, it was amazing. And when it was over, like I started clapping, like no one else was clapping. And the woman next to me was like, "We don't do that here." And I was like, "What?" And I got up and left because I was just like, no, 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 no. I don't. I grew up in non-denominational churches where the music was amazing and it was very spirit filled, and like, I mean, women would like be dancing in the corners. So I didn't understand this, like, no, 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 you can't celebrate, this beautiful song or whatever the case it may be. And, do your own thing, but that was not mine. I wasn't going to be sticking around.
Yeah, 100%. You know what? I've learned now on my path that like wherever people are at, whatever church they're in, whatever religion they're in, that it's perfect for them.
Hmm.
And it makes me happy that they have God in their life
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
spirit, whatever you want to call it. But it makes me so happy just to know that like, oh, there's part of them that is connected to the divine.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's, I know you and I have talked briefly about this in the past, but for me, it's always, you know, arguing or even getting into any debate about whether my God versus your God or whatever the case may be was never something I had any interest in participating in, because who could I ever say is right or wrong for somebody else? The only person I can do that for is myself. And but that was, there was always some conflict there. So something that I kind of mentioned about you in the beginning of this interview is just what an enormous heart that you have, and
Yeah.
you love people. Like, you love
I
people.
yeah, I love people. I have a big heart for sure.
So, like, has that always been the case for you?
Yeah, I look back to my childhood and stuff, and like I was always a happy person, you know, like I just always had love. It's definitely got more and more intense, especially once I started getting to like spirituality, um, and I started meditating, and like going into my heart and just feeling that like power that the heart has. Um, for me, like nothing gives me more joy than just dropping into my heart and seeing the world, you know, because it's just so pure and so just so loving.
Yeah. So how does that translate to, I think like as kids, right, we all kind of start out in this world with a huge heart. But of
Yes.
course, life just kind of, we build one wall, we build another wall, and then by the time we get into our adult years, like, we've got all of these thick iron walls around our heart. Um, so I'm curious to know, like, if it's difficult for you, especially like maybe when you were younger, like, did you get taken advantage of a lot for having such a big heart? Was it easy for you to keep that open?
I would no, like definitely when I think about the heart and like I think about my life and like it is easier to be manipulated for sure. Um, it's easy to be misunderstood. Um, and it's easy to get hurt because when you love so deep and so much all the time, you know, I didn't have like the other balances to match that heart, you know? So like, yeah, growing up, like little things could really hurt me. I'm like, oh, like, you know, little sad moments, you know, breakups I took pretty hard, you know, because like I just loved everybody.
Yeah.
Learning boundaries, that was a big thing with the big heart, right? Because you just like, you just love everybody. And that's like a big lesson for me is boundaries. And it's interesting how people receive love, you know? And so I just try to like live in my heart, live in my soul, and just like exude that love. And whoever can accept it, then I'm there for them. And if they can't accept it, I'm still there for them, you know? That's something that in the last little while I really had to learn actually is that like I just had so much love for people and I could like hear and see these things that they needed. And like I would just try to like shove my love down their throat, right? Like, no, like I feel you're in the darkness. Like there's a way out. Like let's go down together. Let's go to the bottom of the emotional pit. Like, and then we'll climb out and you're gonna be so happy, right? And then I learned like, oh, like not everybody's quite ready for that yet, you know, and some people are happy where they're at. And so like almost like instead of trying to like just be a lighthouse, you know, and just like walk around. And then people that aren't ready for that, they're going to be kind of steered away. And the people that are ready for that are going to, you know, try to come on in.
Yeah. Well, I could definitely see how it's intimidating in multiple ways. It's like uh, I know probably all of us, maybe not you, but the ultra nice person. You're like, whoa, are you okay? What do you want? What's going on? What are you trying to do? Like, because it's just not, we don't have a lot of people walking around with their heart open towards us, certainly not with good intentions. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So a lot of people think it's like fake, right? Like, oh,
Yeah.
like you can't be that happy or like, oh, you can't, you know, just love everybody the way I do. Right. But I mean, they're allowed to view me however they want to view me. And, you know, that's not who I am.
Yeah. I think it's awesome. I think we need more of it. That's for sure. Um, so let's talk about your spiritual awakening. When did that happen for you? So again, you were kind of mentioning a little bit before the show, like in your 20s, you started partying a lot. And then
I did.
when did
I,
your spiritual awakening kind of happen for you?
it's funny. I have a good story for you in a second. I'd say like, obviously the spiritual awakening happens your whole life, right? Like I was like thinking
Very true.
back and I was like, oh, and I didn't realize what was happening at the time, but I remember like, just like I started not to want to drink as much. And, like I started to look within myself more. And then, my first spiritual experience that I can really think about was, I was in Vancouver, and I had eaten an edible, like so I ate an edible, and we were like at this like little tiny bar, and this singer gets up, and I had this like big fancy gold watch on, and it was my first clear audio experience ever, and I heard in my head like, you need to give that watch to him, and it was clear as day. It was like, and then I was like, what? Why? And so and the spirit gave me a very specific message to like tell him that he's like winning at life, and like he maybe never get to do his music like full time and stuff, but like each moment that he gets to do it, to like cherish it. And I gave him my like expensive gold watch. So that was my first like clair audio experience. And then I'd say the next big jump is like, I met a girl, and she like, I'd never felt energy like that before. Whew, like, and at this time I was like learning like what an empath is. And like, I had a couple experiences like, hey, do you feel emotions? Like, do you feel other people's emotions? People are like, what? You're nuts, right? Like, I'm like, no, like you just know how they're feeling. And everybody, like, I'm a mechanic, and everybody's like, you're crazy. So it's like these little things, and then feeling like shockwaves through my whole body. I was like, whoa, like that really like kicked it up a notch. And I was like, well, there's something here. Like, what do I do? And like, how do I find out more? So just like everybody, I'm on Google, like, what's an empath? Like, and then like, once you realize you're an empath, and then you're like, you don't realize how to control your gift. You don't realize, you're just like, some days you're just really sad, and you're like, why am I sad? And so like, it was the desire to like, feel better, to like control my gift, that really like led me down the path I'm on now.
I love that. I mean, you're very true. Like you're very correct when you say we're on an awakening path our whole life. Um, so is clair audience? Okay, so for the folks who don't know what clair audience is, you want to explain that for us?
So just like hearing, is the best way I can put it. Like, it's like when it happens, it's like you clearly hear something, like me and you are just talking right now, and you hear a voice. It doesn't necessarily come from your ear. It like almost comes inside your head. Um, and I wish that it happened more, but it doesn't. Not for me. I only get it once in a while. And I know that's planned that way.
And then clair sentience is also a big part of that. No, because feeling is such a
Yeah.
huge gift of yours.
Yeah. So like feeling other people's feelings, emotions, that is a huge gift of mine. And the more that I like went into my own heart, the more I was able to feel the nuances of how people are feeling. What I've realized is that sometimes I'm not even feeling what they're feeling in the moment. Like, it's like I get to feel like what they're feeling at a soul level, like, um, sometimes I feel people and they're sad, and I'm like, oh, you're like, are you sad? And they'll be like, no. And then I know that it's like their core, like when they're home alone, that's when they're sad. So in the moment they could be happy, but I really get to feel that, like, what are they feeling? What is their like little child feeling?
Yeah, interesting. And so, what is, in your opinion anyway, like what is the difference between an empath and having clairsentience? Or is there one?
I mean, you can, like, with all the clairs, you can call it like whatever you want, you can put a title to it, but like, some people get to feel, some people get to hear, some people get to see, some people have this like inner knowing within their mind, um, and like, it's also a way like, that's your perception of what's happening. right? So I could say that I'm like, I'm feeling you, but like lots of people are just feeling themselves, and they're just like such a sponge that they're like talking to somebody like, I feel sad. Like, that means you're sad, but they don't know that, right? So perception is everything. So like whatever you're feeling, however you want to describe it is perfect, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really interesting, all the clairs, all the clairs. I like the just seeing, hearing, feeling way of describing a little bit better. I feel like it's more inclusive to just kind of everyone in regards to having to explain it. Um, so when did you actually start practicing spiritual work?
So I'd say it was about a few months after I started dating that girl. Um, like I was like, I want to know more. And then I like had a Reiki session, and then I like, uh, she's like, she's like, oh, you're really gifted. And I was like, what does that mean? Right. Like, I don't think I'm that gifted. Right. And then I started taking like a Reiki course, but I can't, what was the name of it? It was like the Empath series is what she called it. And I like loved all the things she taught in that course. You know, she really taught me how to like expand my abilities. So like the first day was usually like just, you know, information about energy, and then the second day would have been like the Reiki day, you know, and diving into that over the course of, you know, half a year to a year really helped like expand those gifts, and then start practicing things like just like basic Reiki, you know, feeling energy and knowing what's mine and knowing what's yours, you know? And it's not necessarily like a practice that I had a table, but definitely like out in the world, like, oh my God, like I'm so sad, or oh, my back hurts so much. Like, what? That doesn't make any sense. Like, my back doesn't hurt, right? And it wasn't until like go to Reiki and then it's gone. And I'm like, oh, that wasn't mine, you know? And some people listening might be, oh, that's crazy, but like, that's okay. It's that daily practice of like, what's mine, what's everybody else's, especially as an empath. That like that line is what's mine and what everybody else's. And you know, I could feel sadness and it could be 10% mine, and you know, 90% somebody else's. But then I bring all that energy in, and I'm just like blah, right? Um, so I did that for a while, and then I had a chance. The lady that taught the course was like, "Would you like to start doing sessions?" And I said, like, okay, you know? And so then I just started working, you know, 1 day a week, a couple hours, and just like anybody that wanted a Reiki session, you know, I would just, okay. And then I practiced and I felt it, and got me closer to where I'm at today.
So when did you, where on this journey did you find your guru?
Oh, great question. That was actually like the first Reiki session I had that I received. She handed me a CD and she's like, I think you'll like this CD. She's like, just sit down and listen to it and like meditate. And I was like, okay, like I had no idea. So I just like, I put in the CD, and back when CDs were cool. And all of a sudden I hear this like, oh, and I was like, whoa. And I just like felt all these vibrations in my body. And then like, you know, I never heard a Shri before. And then like a bunch of words that I had no idea even what it meant, but I just knew that I loved it in that moment. It just like, it finally, in that moment, it felt like I found home. It felt like I had found what I've been searching for my whole life was there for me to explore. And that inner knowing, that feeling, just, it awakened my soul, you know? And within months of me doing meditation, and so I started doing it every day for 30 minutes a day. And I was chanting, I didn't even know if I was saying it right, but I like put in my headphones and I'd like, you know, talk to the lady who taught me everything. And I was like, oh, I had this experience. She's like, okay, keep going, keep going. And it just felt like home. And I loved the chant. I loved everything about it. And that led me to go to India, you know, to meet him in person. Well, he kind of sits on a stage, but, and then when you're there and you meet all these other super heart-centered people, and it's just like, oh, like, you know, I've never been in a place that had so much love. And every single person by the end of the retreat, just like, they're just bursting with love. And it's really awesome.
So, what I think is really interesting about your story so much is this whole like juxtaposition between like we didn't establish this, but like your work is like a master automotive service technician during the day, and then like master healer by night. Um, so after you left India, right, and came back to Canada,
Yep.
what was that like kind of fitting back into regular life, I guess? And did you start at that point working with clients like one on one?
So I have been working with clients one-on-one before I went to India. But like what India did was teach me how to meditate properly. But definitely like as an automotive service technician, they were more open-minded once I started to open up, but that was a lot of fear I had. Oh man, to tell everybody at work, like, hey, like I do Reiki, like, hey, and then like, hey, I'm going to India to meet a guru. Like, oh yeah, some of the guys gave me a hard time about that, saying that I'm crazy. And, they're allowed to have whatever views they want. But what surprised me is that more of them were, again, it's like just being a lighthouse, and like the people that like wanted to be around me and ask questions like did, and then people that didn't just went away, and that's okay. And like it's real interesting who comes closer. And I could see, um so when I came back from India, it was like my torch was burning so bright, and this makes me so happy. I could feel coming back, and then I was talking to my one friend, and he's very Christian, and he hadn't been, doing a lot of Christian things. And after talking to me a little bit, he fired right back up, started going to church on Sundays, started reading the Bible every day. And we had many great discussions. And it just like, in that moment, I saw that like the light came to me, and then I lit somebody else up, even though he didn't come the path I am, but it lit that fire within him. And that made me like so happy. And that was like a very unique experience that I got to experience in a mechanic shop, watching people come back to God.
I love that. So I'm not really, well, I'm not a person who has idols or heroes or whatever, but like as a kid, I loved Mother Teresa. She was
Mm.
like, I loved her. But one of the things that she said that I always so respected was like the highest, my only job is to connect people with God. And so if a Buddhist comes to me, the greatest thing that I can do is help them be the best Buddhist that they can be. If a Muslim comes to me, the greatest thing I can do is help them be the best Muslim and I always so loved and respected that, because this whole idea of like needing to convert everyone to like what you believe, I think it's just so short-sighted. We all have our own path, and I really love when people are able to, like you said, just be that light to whatever path that someone is walking, versus no, 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 come to my path, do this thing with me. You know what I mean?
I do love it. Yes. And I do think that part of it, because I was challenging his beliefs with the things I was saying, and like maybe at first he like went to it to do whatever, like maybe prove me wrong. Doesn't matter. He just dove back into Christianity, and that feeling, it just makes me so happy.
So, how did you find the Akashic Records?
Oh, the Akashic Records. So after about 4 years, the girl that I was seeing, we broke up, and it crushed me. I went to the darkest place I could. Like, I was not in a good place, and I just like happened to have like an Akashic Record reading by somebody. This lovely, I was an online session, a lovely lady in Calgary, and like she was like, you can read the records. And I was like, yeah, like I'm in here, I kind of hear stuff, right? Like I kind of feel things. And like I could always feel an inner knowing. And she's like, well, there's a course coming up. And I was like, okay, like I'll try it. And I just booked a course, and like most spiritual events, you know, there was a bunch of like old ladies and then like me, right? And everybody's kind of like looking at me like, what's this guy doing here? Um, and it was like right then that like, and it was like a pretty intensive workshop, but it was then that I was like, whoa, like there's something here, you know, like this is so much different than anything else I've experienced so far. Like there's so much information there. And I was just instantly, I don't want to say good. It just like, it felt very natural to me. That's a better word. It felt very natural to me. And I was able to like, you know, get messages. And well, the biggest thing I heard was this, like, just say it, even though you might not understand what I'm saying. And I had an experience where like, they're like, all they told me, the girl sitting in front of me to practice, and all I heard was like blue. And I was like, and I was trying to get more. And I was like, all I'm hearing is blue. And she just like started crying, you know, like related, I believe it was her mother. But like it meant so much to her. And then in that moment, I was like, okay, like while I'm in the records, like anything I get, it's not for me, and just to speak it.
Yeah. So, um, oh my gosh, I had like the best question. Okay, yes. All right. So before we kind of like continue diving into the Akashic Records, because I really want to geek out on this with you, but I would love for you to share your definition of the Akashic Records with our audience.
Oh, I have like a 6 long minute YouTube video about this, but
I have like a 20-minute podcast that I just released, a bonus. But one of the things that I really find interesting in regards to the Akashic Records, because I know quite a few readers now, is just hearing everyone's definition of it, right? Because we all kind of experience it a little bit differently. But
yeah. Okay. So like the definition that I go by is the Akashic Records itself. It is just like, it's almost like another dimension. It's just a vibration that's all around us. And you just need to open up to that vibration. And then within that vibration is like everything. It's almost like data streams going across, and you can just like reach in and pick the right one, you know? Um, that's how it feels to me. It's everywhere, you know? And it's like right here. And then when you tap into it, it's like, whoa, it's like, feels like a whole dimension. If I was to explain it to somebody else, I would say it's more like, you know, there's a library and you have a book. That's a good one. The other real one I enjoy talking about is if you think of like the Akashic Records, like the internet, you know, and you have a computer in front of you and anybody can access that computer, right? And you're like, and like some people are running on dial-up and they have trouble getting information, and some people have like super fast internet speed. And that's probably why you would go see an Akashic Record reader, is because they've taken the time to really build that connection, build that bridge to the internet, right? So when you come see, you know, you're used to getting dial-up and now you're getting full-blown virtual reality experience, you know?
yeah, absolutely. So when you first started going into the records, you were in a course. Did you like jump right out and start reading for people, or kind of what was your path, right?
Yeah. So after I learned how to read the Akasha Records, so one of the things that they teach is you like, okay, for 30 days, you need to do X amount of readings for free, and to like go out and do that. And so I started asking all my friends, anybody I knew. But more importantly than that, on days, and like it was exhausting because it's like a muscle, it's like a bicep. That connection, it takes a while to build, and I'm happy. So I had to do 16. And every time they got longer and longer. My first one was like 10 minutes, you know, and like my 16th one was like just over an hour. And within that is at the beginning, like probably the first 6 months, I went into my own records quite often. And sometimes I would just like open the records and just like tell my story, you know, to get healing, not even trying to get information and then like close the records. But again, just like building that connection. And then I started really cheap, like it was like $10 or like whatever you can give me, like, you know, it's okay. Like $5, like just give it with love. Right. And like, I really wanted them to like, not be like, oh, I have to give this much. It's like, no, this feels really good. And then I did it by donation for a while. And then I'd probably say I don't even know how many readings I did. I did quite a lot. And then I started like, okay, like, let me try like people I don't know. And like, I made a website and I started offering it instead of a Reiki service, you can get an Akashic Record reading. And there was like, right at the beginning, there was just like a flood of people that came in. And I know that was spirit, just like, this is what you should be doing. And they just, boom. And it was like every weekend I had so many clients. So that's how I got to where I'm at now, you know. And like, while you're in the records, you learn so much every time, you know. Like one time you'll hear, like, I do all kinds of healing in the records, and I would just hear it and I'm like, no, that can't be telling them that. Like, no, like spirit's like, and then I would just like spit it out. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, you know, like taking journeys, you know, healing your little kid. That's another,
So
sorry,
just,
you go.
you're fine. No, just to clarify. So when you're in the records, you're talking about how like spirit guides you to heal in different ways. Is that correct? And so you were following how you were, being led while in the records?
Yes. Yeah. It always happened in the records, and they'd always, you know, use this modality that you learned outside within the records. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I could do that. I don't know if I'm allowed to, but I just trusted it. And like, all of a sudden there was like amazing results. You know, I would like to clarify something that like when I read the records, and every reader's like reads the records differently, but I really try to stay heart centered, you know, like within the heart, right? If people don't know, you get information, you know, in your third eye, through the top of your head. I get it also in the back of my head. I get all this information coming in. And if my mind's trying to like decode that, it's like, it's only decoding like 2 lines of information, maybe 3. If I stay in my heart while in the records, it's like I get so much more information. And then when it comes from my heart and I can really feel it, it's like, oh, I know that's what I'm supposed to say to people. And I think that's what maybe differs me from other people, is like, I want to help you heal. You know, like that is the reason why I go in the records. It's to help people heal, versus there's other records like, and I can answer yes or no questions and stuff like that. But like, I find that the guides, that when they come to me and somebody comes to me and they just want like, is this my future husband? I always find like the guides really like start asking questions like, well, why do you feel that? Why do you need to know that? Right. Like, and that's just the way they work with me.
Yeah. So in regards to the process then too, so because my next question was going to be like, when did you start healing within the record? So this is just something that started naturally happening while you were learning to read?
Yeah. So I'd say the first time it was near the, because at one point I took a course called the Universal Sphere. And it's basically like an energy ball. And like, spirit was just like, do one of those. And I was like, okay. And I just like, and they're like, get them to close their eyes, like get them to build a ball of love. And like, you know, so I was like, okay, like, and like, this is happening real time. And I don't remember my readings, but I always remember if there's like a new thing that they get me to do. And so I was like, okay, like, I don't know if this is right, but like, I'm going to try it. And then afterwards I was like, oh yeah. Like, then I'd go in my own records and like, yes, you can like do that. Like you were guided to do that, you know? Cause like, for any people that are like starting to read the records, like trusting yourself is like probably the biggest hurdle that I've seen readers face, big time. Just like trusting the information you're getting, and trusting yourself to just like do it.
I would say that that's like probably the number one hurdle across any sort of spiritual healing modality, anything,
Yes.
we aren't taught to trust ourselves, and we certainly aren't taught to trust our intuition. I remember a friend of mine, his son, had told his dad, like, yeah, the head band guy is really strange, at my school. And my friend was like, no, don't say that, because he's just, a little bit different, don't do that. It turned out this guy was like abusing these young girls, and his son totally had like the intuition to be like, something is not straight with this guy. But of course, the parents like, no, 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 don't do that. And that's, no bad on him by any means. I think that happens just, naturally, right? Because his parents, I'm sure, did the same. But like through life, we're not taught to flex these muscles. We're certainly not taught to trust ourselves. So when it comes to adding in the magic, it's kind of like, wait a minute, did I really hear that? Did I see that? Is that real?
How can I
Those are not
possibly,
easy things.
yeah, how can I possibly know that, you know? That those are all, yeah. With children, it's interesting you're talking about a child. So when I think about children, like their heart's already open, you know? And like at a certain age, you know, like we start to lose that. But like, oh, you got to really listen to kids, man. They're
Super
something else.
wise. So
Yeah,
wise.
so
Yeah.
wise.
When my first nephew was born, I remember just like looking at him and the way he would look at me, and it was just like he
He's seen your soul.
knows.
I
Yeah.
can feel it right now. Yeah, he like when he looks at you, he just looks right at your soul.
Yeah. Yeah,
Oof.
he would I can't remember what my father called him. Uh but it was definitely, I mean, like he's just, yeah, you could tell when he would look at you, it was like, I see right through you. um I love that about kids, actually, just being around them and like seeing the world how they see, or like the little babies who are like obviously looking at angels around you, or like those
Oh
things
yeah.
always trip me out.
Yes.
So because I've worked with you, I know that when you go on the records, kind of how you work is, your guides give you this message, you write it down, and then you
Yeah.
share it. How did you learn that process for yourself?
Um, so it was like a suggestion of like you need to take a minute when you get in the records and like really start to connect. And for whatever reason, my best way to start to connect is to start like automatic writing, you know? And it was like how they taught us in class, you know, like just write one word and then see what. So like I would just like write the person's name and then it would just all of a sudden start flowing. And then by the end of their message, depending on the person, then I feel like I'm really in that flow, right? And then we go back and I read them that, and then I get to like, you know, just read the words, and yeah, I can all of a sudden feeling starts coming out, and it's like I'm now talking to the person on multiple levels, you know, that maybe they've not experienced before. And once I'm in that flow state, then it just keeps coming, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. When I was taught, it was very much about like going the records, because like you were saying, you got to like really start moving that energy. And I was taught to just kind of start describing it. But I know that, like, depending upon what our gifts are, whether we're seeing or hearing, knowing, whatever the case may be, that trying to move in accordance with that gift on the onset is a really powerful way to get things moving. Um,
Yeah. And sometimes when I'm writing, like at the beginning, I'm just seeing a picture, you know, and like that's part of like learning the spiritual gifts. It's like it's not like they're talking in my ear all the time, you know. Like new readers have to realize, like we want it to just like be, you know, a guide talking in our ear. Like I want that, but that's generally not how it comes to me. You know, sometimes it's an inner knowing. Sometimes it triggers a memory. Sometimes they show me an image, and then I have to like talk about that image. Sometimes it's a feeling, you know, and it's so interesting when you start to like, because there's so many ways information can come to you, and I find that depending on the person, how you can best help them, that's the way. So like somebody to be real
hmm.
visual, like I got a lot of pictures, you know. Somebody that likes writing and like journals lots, like one client, almost the whole session was just like me writing. I was like, yeah, I have to stop because I can just tell them this like directly. You know, but that's just like the way that they really connected. And then some people it's
Hmm.
feelings, like, oh, how are you feeling? It's like, oh, like what's that, you know?
Interesting. I haven't heard that perspective before. So what you're saying is that, like, how the information is coming through to you is really reliant upon your clients' gifts, even more so, like how they receive messages versus your own. Is that correct?
Yeah, that just came to me. But it's true. It's like somebody that is visual, the best way to talk to them is in pictures, right?
Yeah.
Some person that feels, you know, the best way to talk to, like you're meeting them at the level, because something I know is I could tell somebody something that makes no sense to me at all, like a crazy picture, let's say, or just like a sentence. And I'm like, I don't understand that. The last client I had, I kept saying flow like water. Um, Flow like water, flow. And I told her, I was like, I'm getting all these visions of like just flowing like water, you know, just like being like water, flowing like water. And then she like said, and I'd like, I don't understand it. I've never told anybody that before. And then she like, oh, like, I think it was like, she's really into like Tai Chi and she's reading like one of the books about it. And they're talking about flowing like water. Right. And so whatever the client needs to hear, it's like, it's not coming from me. It's coming from their guides, and they get the information exactly the way. And all the time I'm like, I don't understand. Like me as a person, I do not understand. I'll like be say something to somebody, and like at the beginning I was like, oh my God, like I hope this isn't like, and all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, like I totally get that, right? Like, oh, thank you know, there's a lot of those moments at the beginning. And still sometimes I get that. Like sometimes I'll say something like way left field and I'll be like, what the heck? You know, and like I recently started, I have like a messages from the guides. So I don't even get to talk to them. And I do find that readings where you get to like interact, you can go way deeper. But like the messages from the guys, I pop in the records and just say what the guys have. And I just have to like trust that what I'm saying is that's what they need to hear.
Yeah. Yeah. First time that I went in the records for someone else, it was in my class. And, I had gotten paired up with this girl, and, she's a tattoo artist. And, and I went into her records, and I was like literally seeing her like in a library of sorts, like pulling down books. And she had like this like doctor's uh, vest jacket thing on. And I'm like, my brain is wanting to be like, Anna, what? This is the library of the Akashic Records. Like, my brain was wanting to like really mess with me about it. And I was just like, whatever, I'm just going to tell her. And so I just like started sharing what I was seeing with her, that she was like looking for a solution. She was like in this like medical field, like whatever the case may be. And finally I was like, is this resonating at all? And she was like, oh my gosh, I'm literally looking at medical school right now. Like, this is really where I want to go. And I mean, I would have, it was just like, I thought I was just being I didn't make any sense to me whatsoever. I mean, this girl had like a shaved head, covered in tattoos. Like, I just, I'm thinking like, she's going to think I'm crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah,
You
it
know,
just fed.
you did the same thing for me, you know? And I like, and like when you do read somebody that like has been reading for a while, you're like, the nerves are extra hard, cause like before I did sessions for people I like really looked up to that are in the spiritual community. I could feel you, and you're just talking. I could feel you a little bit nervous, and then, but like everything you said was just like so magical, and like I really understood that. So like I love that about how you read the records.
Thank you. That's really sweet. Yeah, I was definitely very nervous to read your records. I was like, okay, just gonna do it. Not gonna think about it. I'm just gonna go for it.
You did phenomenally. And
Yeah,
I can
well,
still, even just talking to you right now, I get to like feel exactly what you told me. And you took me on like a journey, and it was awesome.
don't make me cry because I'm sensitive today. You already made me cry. Let's talk about that. Um, yeah, well, Colin is definitely an incredible reader as well, and even brought out my like super emotional side in the midst of records. What is that like when you're able to like connect so deeply with people that they start crying on you? I mean, you start crying too, which is because you're so heart connected.
Yeah.
Um,
So I'm feeling like, so I set a very strong boundary when I go into the records. Number one, like I'm in full control of my body, but that like anything that happens in the session is not mine. Right. Like it's not mine. Like I really try to take the I out of the equation. And so like I can feel like when like something's emotional, even if like the client's trying to hold back, like I feel them trying to hold back, and I get to feel like My favorite thing is, even if the client doesn't realize it, sometimes I get to like, there's this shift. And if there was a part that I love the most, it's like the eye that I love the most. It's like when I feel a shift. Now, all my readings, some of them I don't feel that massive shift and it happens later, but like, I just feel that like, doop, you know, that little shift of energy. And I'm like, oh, there it is, you know, and that just like, it just makes me so happy. Like, cause I know they're going to change. I know in that moment, or like when somebody's allowed to cry or to feel emotion, or like, you know, to feel their little kid within them. And like, I'm going to get emotional now just talking about it. Like those moments where like somebody's getting to heal, it like really makes me happy. Like as a soul, I'm like, oh, like, you know, they're headed more towards their highest path, whatever that is.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I haven't gotten, I don't think I've been reading for long enough to feel that shift in those that I read for, but I'm excited to feel that because I don't know, to like even be a part of that. Like I know what it is to have a conversation with a friend who needs a friend, you know, or needs like a
Yep.
listening ear. So to be a part of that in the midst of the records, because the records is nothing but love anyway. So I would probably, I mean, not probably, I would definitely be getting emotional with my person. There's no way. And or walking away, just feeling so humbled and thankful that I even get to be a part of any kind of a shift, you know?
Yeah. Gratitude. That's the one that comes like, oh, I just say that. And just like, I am so like, people are like, oh, I'm so I like, I'm thankful for people allowing me to go that deep with them. Cause you know, there is a point where like you have to, you know, you just like hop on a, you know, a call with this person. And I get this comment a lot where people are like, I was scared to get online with you, you know, like they could feel what's coming, and they
Hmm.
like go through that, and they just like hop online, and they just like, oh yeah, like, and because I'll ask people now, right, like, oh, like, or I even send it in my email, like, you might get nervous before, and like that's okay. And the people that are getting nervous, it's generally they're going to go deep within their stuff, and maybe stuff they haven't felt in a long time. And it just brings me so much gratitude to get to be a part of that journey, you know, like with each person, it's just like, it just fills my heart with love to be able to help anybody.
For sure. Absolutely. It is such a, for me, it's always humbling to help anyone in any kind of capacity. So in regards to like your clients, do you see any kind of, like, what do they come to you for?
So this is funny. What they come for and then what they get sometimes aren't the same. You know, sometimes they're just like, I just want to like an answer on this one thing. And then like, you know, 20 minutes later, we're like going deep. Um, Now I've had like all kinds of clients, you know, some clients are curious. Some of my favorite clients are the ones who like are just starting out on their journey, because like, you know, and I definitely get like, you know, from a soul perspective, there's themes, you know, like, you know, oh, this client, you know, they're kind of at their beginning stage of their awakening. Like they don't even know they have gifts. Or like sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, like, you know, all your gifts. And they're like, yeah, I know all my gifts. And then like, I remember one client, and then like tell her she's an empath. And I was like, what? No, she knows all her gifts. And I was like, okay, like, oh, like, and then I like told her, she's like, what? She's like, I knew I could channel. I'm like, no, like you are an empath. And she starts crying. She's like, oh, like, that's why I feel so many emotions, you know? And then you have the people that have been like on their path for a while. And then you have the path that are like kind of in their dark phase, you know, and they got to like, they're going deeper into their stuff, you know, and like giving, spirit gives them tools to like help them. And every client's unique, you know, every time I talk to somebody, I'm like, oh, I'm just so wowed, you know, everybody has been through so much pain and hardship, even if they don't think they have. Like I had a great childhood, you know, and then there's like, and then you get in their records and you're like, oh, like there was this moment, and they're like, oh, you know, so there's definite themes to all the reading, like groups of people, but each individual reading is just so unique and special to me.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, Earth is the learning planet, right? We don't come here to to just hang out. We're all here to learn and learn. So one of the things I definitely wanted to ask you about is I feel very much like, as you were talking about, the folks who come to you who are kind of on the beginning of their journey. I feel like
Hmm.
you are such a teacher slash way shower slash like guide. Um, have you always kind of been in this situation in your life, or is this something that you've really stepped into the older that you've gotten in regards to like mentoring others on their spiritual path?
What's funny, we're gonna go back in time. So I was in Canada. We have this thing called air cadets, and you like do drill and stuff. And like I always wanted to be a pilot, and I would get so mad every summer. They'd send me to leadership camp, and like I wanted every other course but the leadership camp, and I always got leadership camp. And I look back and seeing that, I'm like, oh, like I was being taught, like like hey, like this is a direction you're going to pick. I didn't really think of myself as like a teacher until recently. And I was like, oh, like I have a lot of tools that I can like help people with, so like throughout, and like obviously in the records, I've gotten to see some future things. So I definitely know in the future I'll be teaching more people. And that makes me really happy, just like there's so many people on the planet right now that are gifted and have no idea, and they have no idea how to handle those gifts, and like I'm gonna get emotional just thinking about it, like um just so much pain, and like thinking that what they're experiencing isn't normal when it is. And more and more people born on the planet are more and more gifted, like my grandchildren, like that generation is going to be wow.
Yeah. Yeah, watching my nephews, especially the first one. I haven't gotten to know the second one just yet. Boo COVID. But but my first nephew, like I was just talking with you about, he's very gifted. And how that comes to fruition, I don't know. But it definitely, I think what's really exciting about the spiritual community is how much it's growing and how much it's like finding its way into mainstream. And that like
Yes.
so many of the communities that I've like tapped into and become a part of, and I think even like podcast followings, like this is the younger generations that are just like
Yes.
really, really hungry and searching, because they're looking at organized religion being like, nah, this is not, this
Yeah, it
doesn't
doesn't
work
feel
for
right.
me. And then there's so many of them that are extremely talented and they're looking for like guidance in that. So there's such a need for that. Plus, I mean, look at the planet that they've been born on, the problems. Like, I remember in eighth grade, like 20 whatever years ago. Um, how old are you in eighth grade? I don't know, but a long time ago. But I remember thinking about like, you're gonna laugh, but I remember like thinking about like, oh gosh, because there was whatever going on during that time. I can't remember, but thinking like, I hope I don't die a virgin. That's all. I hope the world doesn't end before. But things were so chill then compared to
Yep,
now. And to be a
definitely.
child born on this planet in these times, it's heavy, man. It's so heavy.
Yeah, it is heavy.
Um,
I would like to touch on one thing.
yeah.
So there's more and more people waking up. And I just want like to tell everybody that is waking up has gifts, but you're using those gifts in your everyday life, even if you don't realize it. And like not everybody is meant, they might have meant to read cards for people, but they might meant to be like that, to be their full-time job. But to know that you're helping the collective, you going to your day job, you are helping the collective. Like I know that when I go to my mechanic job, that I am changing the energy of that space every day I go there. So just like I know there's a lot of spiritual people right now, they just want to like quit their job and just like run, and then they'll be broke, and like it's not happening fast enough, and then they put this pressure on themselves, and because they're doing that, they're not getting. So like just everybody breathe, right? And know that you're like, right now, you're exactly where you're meant to be, and you are changing the world where you're at. You being you is the magic. You being who you are in your workplace with your family, you are helping the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you're coming at it from a place of love. It's that love, man.
The love is, man, the love in the heart, like I teach people a lot, just getting into their heart. I have a cool little meditation to get people into their heart. And like a lot of people haven't been there in a while, and like um, the heart's a compass, man. The heart, like when I think of like all the chakras, um, the root is very underrated. The heart is underrated. Everybody wants the third eye, like I want to see all the visions. I want all the stuff. Right. And, bring it to the heart, because that's like your soul's in your whole body, but I find the heart is like the best way to connect to your soul, like in my experience, it's the best way,
And how do you recommend people connect to their heart? What's something kind of anyone?
Ready for this? This is super easy. Touch your heart, like literally, like right now, I'm just touching my heart. And that allows you to like bring your awareness down into your chest, and like, I can do it really easily. Because I practiced a lot, but, just touching your heart, like, how am I feeling? What's going on in my heart? Just like those three simple things will change your life.
Yeah. Yeah, you know that I've like really started trying to work on my heart the last, I don't know, probably 3 weeks intentionally, like very intentionally. And I remember one morning, like in the midst of my morning time, I put my hand on my heart and it hurt so much. Like it, like
Mm,
physically, I could like just, it felt really tender and sore and like just sad. It was painful. And I was
yeah.
like, oh my gosh, I'm pretty sure I was going through some things that morning, but still, it just blew me away to like to feel that with my hand.
Now I'd like to say right there, I can feel you. I'm really proud of you. You stayed in your heart. I'm proud of you, because a lot of times, you start to feel those things and everybody's like zip right back to their brain or right out of their body, um, but like they don't want to be in that pain, but like there's healing that needs to be done. But once you do a lot of that healing, it's much easier to live in your heart, so I'm really proud of you for doing that. That makes me
Thank
really happy.
Thank you, Colin. This is why I love Colin because he's so encouraging always. um, so, okay, so in that, what I'd love to know is, I think what would be helpful for people to know is like that process. So when you feel pain, when you feel rejection, or you feel sadness, or you feel whatever the case may be, then the best thing to do is to just like really go into it, correct? And like breathe into it and just kind of like absorb it into the rest of your body. Is that kind of a good
Yeah.
exercise to do?
Yeah, definitely. Like, so two things. Number one, empaths, remember, like sometimes the emotions you're feeling aren't yours. But number two is, yeah, like once you're feeling it, like, especially if there's nobody around, and like something, like it's to feel those emotions and to like, to know in that moment you could feel like dying, like truly, like it feels like you're going to die, and to know that it's not going to last. Right. To know that in that moment, it just like feel, especially if you're in a safe, and like, if you're not in a safe place, I just want to like put a little disclaimer out there. If you're not in a safe place, like not the time to like, go into your heart, like become safe. And then when you're in a safe place, like, yeah, like feel those emotions. Like, on my journey, like I spent hours, crying, not knowing why, like on my floor, being like, why am I feeling this? And then like the bliss that come after. And it's that process. Cause like you have a whole lifetime of trauma in your heart and in your body, so anybody that's listening to your podcast, that's soul driven, is definitely, going into their into their stuff. So like feeling it, breathing helps, like, you know, a lot of breath and just feeling it, you know, and like it will pass.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been interesting. Like since I've started working on my heart, like breathing has even gotten easier. You know, when I am breathing,
Yeah.
it's like I don't feel that like you know, when you inhale and you like don't have much air to inhale, it's like
Yeah.
your yoga teacher's counting to 8 and you're like, I can't get past 2. Like
Y-
but the more that I've really been working on my heart, like I can feel it now, like expanding across my chest and like feels good.
Yeah. I've had some cool experiences going into the heart. That's for sure. You know, like there's you get, this is just a happy, uh, I like, um, my guru had a thing here in Canada and came back from that retreat and I felt like a literal Care Bear. Like it felt like there was love shooting out of my heart for 3 days. And like I did not know what to do with it. And just like anybody I talked to, just like, you know, that's like one of the great experiences of like when you get in the heart, when you like open up that heart chakra, you know, like, and you get to feel deep, you feel deeper, you know yourself better. Um, yeah, it's really amazing.
Care Bear. I love the way you describe that because it's so perfect.
Yeah.
I could like see that as you were speaking about it. I had
Yeah.
totally forgotten about the Care Bears and their hearts coming out.
Yeah, and they did right. Oh,
That's
when
so
I had,
perfect.
it's so perfect. The younger generation's probably gonna have this. Listen to this podcast. Probably gonna have to go Google Care Bears.
Yes, go Google them anyway. Um, so in regards to the way that you work with people, I know that like you do Akashic Record readings, you do some healing sessions as well.
Yes.
Um, are those like your two main components and ways that you work with folks?
Yeah. So, and both can be done in person or at a distance. But those are like my two main methods. And within those methods, like, I've been blessed. Spirits taught me to help people do soul retrievals and things like that. But I don't want to like advertise certain things because somebody's going to come to me and they're going to be like, I want this. And in my experience, you got to let it unfold naturally. So like you come for an energy healing session, like I don't know what's going to happen sometimes, spirits guided me to do all kinds of stuff. Same with the Akashic records, and they both have like a different vibe, and it's all encompassing within those, two sessions.
So with the energy healing, are you doing Reiki or are you doing just kind of whatever it is that spirit guides you to do?
So I was trained in Reiki, and sometimes I'll use Reiki, but what I really learned from Reiki was feeling energy. Um, Part of my process of an energy healing session is I actually guide people through a guided meditation. What's interesting is that guided meditation is as much for them as it is for me. I get to see, in my mind, I could feel like stuck things. Maybe a chakra's not going fast enough. I like spinning at the right speed is how I feel it. I use breath a lot, right? Clearing energy. Because that's, it doesn't matter what you call it. Any modality is moving energy. That's what's happening, and sometimes it's at the soul level, sometimes at the physical level, sometimes it's in, um, the universe level, but it's all just moving energy. So, sometimes I hit a singing bowl. I have crystals that I use a lot of the time, I'll put crystals on people, it's like, I really try to be soul driven, right? Like what's myself telling me to do in this moment and just trusting that and, going with the flow of that session.
I love that. I've worked with you, so I know the power of your flow. I think we did like two different things. I think we worked on my inner child for sure, and then the heart as well, because of course I'm so much up in my head. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, learning to get down into my heart and healing that is such a priority of mine. Um, so one last question before we jump into the lightning round.
Ooh.
Ooh. I'm really curious to know like how you stay energetically clean.
Oh, that is a great question. I do a lot. um, so like my go-to, like I take a lot of salt baths, Epsom salt baths, float tanking. Um, Actually, I'm going to rewind that. Meditation is the number one thing that like makes my aura stronger.
Mm.
And when my aura is stronger, it's like less stuff can get through and less stuff can stick to me. So that's like number one thing. But like salt baths, sage, um, you know, lately it's been a rose spray. Sorry, rose spray. I just spray rose spray on me. Oh, it feels so good. Like it's just like ooh, like um, nature. Nature has been just a couple minutes touching a tree and you feel so good. Those would be like what I would say my main methods. And then the one more method is like even me, like where I'm at in life, I still go see a healer, you know, like
Yes,
it doesn't
yes.
matter. It doesn't matter who you are, like you can still, there's parts that you can't see. So like I go to an energy healer, regularly, and sometimes different ones, sometimes like, oh, I need to book this appointment. I just book the appointment, sometimes it's a reading. So, right. Um, so those would be the things that I say I use to clear my energy and keep my energy, as clear as possible.
Yeah. No, I love that you brought up like the fact that you go to an energy healer too, because I feel that it's so important for people who are doing energy work of any kind of readings, holding that kind of space for people. Like they've got to go to, they've got to get like, you know, things integrated or rebalanced or whatever the case may be. I know I feel like you and I have talked about this before, but God really set us up in this life so that we need each other. So while we can help everyone else, like we need help for ourselves. We can do things, but having that extra help, I think is just really huge. So I love that you brought that up because that's definite.
Massive. And if you are doing healings and you don't know, like find somebody, and you might have to feel it out. You might have to try. Cause like, I never want anybody to go to another healer and then like leave not feeling good or leave like like a lot of gifted people I see, they're like, oh, I went to this healer and like, I just felt like like they got a healing, right? It's like, no, like find somebody that you feel better once you see them and then go
Mm-hmm.
to see them regularly.
Yeah, absolutely. Whenever it's come to me, like when I wanted an acupuncturist or whatever the case may be, I put that out into the universe and then the right person ends up being introduced to me, or like put in my path and it's aligned and that's, that's the way it works. Cause there's different folks for different people and there's, we're not all for everybody.
That's true.
And so being able to find someone that you can really connect with, I think is extremely important. So allowing yourself to like ease your way into that instead of just like rushing out and booking something, you might kind of walk away not as, not as, not as pleased with your, with the session or whatever the case may be. Just taking time, I think, to find someone good is important.
Look at you trusting your intuition and your
Oh,
faith in things flowing to you.
well, the thing is like, uh, there's all kinds of different kinds of trust, but when it comes to your own energy, like we need to be really protective of that. That's something we need to take seriously. And we don't need to just let anyone into our spiritual field, especially someone who's going to be like touching into our soul. Like we need to be prudent about choosing that person. So I think it's huge.
Listen to how your body's feeling, on that note, because like our mind can tell, well, this is where it's happening into your heart. Listen to what your body says, like maybe you have a resistance, but like that's where I get what you're talking about, the intuition for that level. I get it in my body and in my heart.
Yeah. Yeah. I put it out to the universe and then it comes.
Look at the magic flowing in your life.
All right. Are you ready for the lightning round?
Let's go. I'm ready.
You listen to my podcast, so they won't be as big of a surprise for you. Okay, number one. What is the one habit that you can't live without?
Salt baths. It's crazy. I wanted to say meditation, salt baths. I can't live without salt baths.
So I don't usually ask questions and stuff during this, but I have to know, do you put anything special in your salt baths? Like, do you use Epsom salt or Himalayan salt, or like, what do you
I
put in
have
your baths?
I buy Epsom salts by like a big, huge 55-pound bag at a time. And if I really need like a little extra, like cleaning, a little, like 2 drops of pure rose oil, like essential oil. And that just makes me feel so good.
Do you know about putting rose oil on your heart chakra?
I mean, I spray it on it all the time.
You should put the oil on your heart chakra. Seriously, it's epic. It
I'll,
feels really nice.
I'll try right after this.
Yeah, you'll have to let me know. Number two, what does spirituality mean for you?
Spirituality means to me is finding your way back to God, to source, to the universe, however you want to describe it. That's spirituality to me.
I love that. What is your advice to anyone who's looking to find purpose?
Let purpose find you. Breathe. We have a long life here. Like, let the stress go. So many people like, what's my purpose? What's my purpose? Like, I've read a lot of people's records, and I'm telling you, like, some people's purpose right now is just to be where they're at, and like just to love people where they're at, and experience the things they're experiencing. Everybody wants their like soul's purpose, but like, if you research, I'm going to go real 3D here, but like billionaires, like how many of them didn't find their thing until like they were 45, like Gary V, like he grinded, and like now he's successful. He didn't have his thing, until later in life. So the people like looking for their purpose, like make your purpose. If you don't know what your purpose is, make your purpose learning about yourself.
That's great advice. Really, really good advice. And I just have to say too that I love reading stories of successful people, because I feel like you said the majority of it happens later in life. We think it's going to happen so young, but it doesn't. It just
Yeah.
doesn't for the majority of us.
And people fail. Like maybe at one point in your life, like I did a course one time, and I didn't know what my purpose was at this point, So I put my purpose down was just like, I want to be healthy, And like, that's some people's purpose at that time. Like it will come to you. You will find throughout your life what your purpose is, or just try stuff, like maybe that's like, go try it. Like worst case scenario, like it doesn't work.
Yeah. Failure is trying. That's it. That's really it.
Yeah, man. I've tried a lot of stuff,
You and me both. All right. Last question. Where can people connect with you online?
Honestly, the best place would be just my website, and then to email me, astralhealing.ca, because I'm Canadian. The other place would be YouTube. I'm probably not near the top, and I only have a couple videos, but more and more are coming all the time. And that is Astral Healing. You can also find me on Instagram, Colin Astral. Right now, like you got to interview me like I'd say like the beginning of my business journey, like really making the business side of things grow. So you get to see who I really am, some snowboarding pictures and stuff.
Awesome mountain photos.
Yeah.
With all of the amazing souls in your photos. I love that you call like everyone like an amazing soul.
Yeah. I truly believe, this is something that's hard for people to see, but like, I truly see people's souls and like where they're at, and I can always see the good in them. And that's got me hurt a couple of times. So I had to like, kind of pull back from, but I get to see people as their soul, and everybody has a beautiful soul, it's just like how much trauma is covering up that soul,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Colin, it has been such a pleasure. I could talk to you for days. We need to have you back for sure.
Anytime.
Our like prep work getting started before we were recording was amazing. Maybe we'll have to include that. We meditated. Colin put on like a dancing song.
Yeah, I gotta get the vibes up.
Awesome. All right, folks, that wraps up today's episode. And now I'm curious to hear, what did you learn today? Click the link in our show notes to leave a comment on today's post, or find us on social media at Soul Driven Podcast. I would love to hear from you, always. And if you were inspired by today's message, share this episode and leave a review on iTunes. Be sure to sign up for the email list. And don't forget, when we invest in ourselves, the world benefits. Until next week.